All right, pay no attention to the heating pad on my shoulder. This is not a fashion statement, but this is just what happens when you get old. You can come on in here. When you get old here, you know, I had had to have a rotator cuff repair. How you gonna do that? You don't know. If you don't know, who knows? Well, 36 years and she still thinks I got some good ideas. I don't know how many times do I have to completely fail before you figure that out. Uh, at any rate. So yeah, so no, I had a rotator cuff repair on this one back, I think 2018 or so. That was a workman's compensation injury. This left shoulder's been giving me problems for probably about, I don't know, a few months, a year now, whatever. Uh, yeah, that'll work. I look like I'm going to play in the Alphabet Club football team, don't I? Hey, yeah, I like me a tight end. Anyway, so yeah, so my shoulder's bothering me this morning. I probably need to go to Dr. Pate's and get it kind of checked out, but I am postponing it like all old guys do. It's wanting to fall off. I think I need Deidre just to come here and stand beside me while I'm working and hold it in place for me, but she becomes such a distraction. I tell you, that's what happens. At any rate, so yeah, pay no attention to the rainbow colored heating pad thing I have over here that I keep pointing out and telling you not to pay any attention to. Anyway, the point I want to make here is here's a memory that I shared yesterday from 2021, November 3rd, 2021, addressing an issue that seems to be an issue with a lot of families. Where they say kids eat first, and then it says Thanksgiving with black families, but you can see where 4 years ago I just edited in the Snyder families because I say the Snyder families because my brother Justin, is this thing even on? She got it on medium. Medium. Look at it, medium. She got it on medium. Can you? God dog it. I think she likes seeing me suffer. Anyway, so I say Snyder families because my brother's the same way with his family. It's this big thing nowadays, this big question of should children eat first or should the adults eat first? Or more specifically, should the father eat first? And whatever. Well, I shared this in 2021 and Deidre did not comment on it at all, which kind of offends me a little bit. I feel kind of neglected, unappreciated, or whatever. But she popped up this morning. I shared it yesterday. Didn't think anything more about it. And she popped up this morning with this. Nope, Daddy eats first, which is true. I'm surprised she didn't say Big Daddy. That's what she usually called me when she uses the word Daddy. She and I don't refer to one another as Mama and Daddy. My brother and his wife Charlotte do that, but I don't do that. My mother and my stepfather Dave did that, but we don't do that. I think it's kind of creepy, but people do it. I mean, it's their thing, but I ain't doing it. I ain't doing no Mama Daddy, but she does call me Big Daddy. So here she said, nope, Daddy eats first. And that really is the case. You know, I think back to when our children were small, you know, naturally when they were baby bottle and, you know, cereal and that kind of stuff, you know, a baby gets hungry, starts screaming, and you want to go ahead and feed that baby because you want him to shut up as quick as possible. And that's the way it is with Snyder's. It's in our DNA. The quickest way to get us to shut up is put food in our mouth. So, you know, you want to get that baby to shut up, but you know, I'm thinking back to when my kids were maybe, let's say, 4, 5, 6, on up, you know, 7, 3, 4, you know, where they're eating solid food at the table with you. And I really can't say for certain that I always ate first, but it really wasn't something that was thought about. I would think that Deej and I would have probably both been up, you know, because the kids were too young at that time to dish up their own food. So we probably would have had them at the table. You know, like when Shannon was, let's say when Shannon was 10, Jude would have been a newborn. So Shannon may have helped a little bit, Shannon and Kaylin. And if Jude was a newborn, then Micah would have been 1 and Noah would have been 4, I think. I don't know. I'm a public school graduate. Let's see. And then that's art and you carry the 1. I don't know. generally. I'm just saying we had children for 10 years. Literally, Shannon was born in October of '91, and Jude was born in um, March. March. Yeah. See, oh gosh, I'm losing my memory just like I'm losing my left shoulder over here. But Jude was born in March, the end of March of 2001. So it was about 10 years there. We were having kids. So we had older kids, and then we had, older elementary, and then we had newborns and such. It was quite a stretch, yet I digress. So, I can't say for sure when we had like small children, high chair children, or toddlers and that sort of stuff, even 3, 4, 5-year-old kids. I can't say for sure. I don't remember just walking into the dining room and sitting down at the table while Deidre dished up my plate because, we had a bunch of little kids. But beyond that, when it got to a certain point to where they could dish up their own food, then typically it wasn't an issue. But it wasn't that our family said the father eats first, as if there was some sort of a regal, entitled kinship. It was just the way it happened. Thinking back, I'm not sure I can't say for sure that I have a memory that Mama fed my stepfather Dave first. I can't. Seems like she did, but it wasn't something I really made a mental note of because, again, it just wasn't something that we thought of. I honestly, I never thought of this question until a few years ago when women, mothers, and the feminized men who pander and simp for them came on to Facebook and made it an issue. They created a lot of drama around it to really, I believe, to just try to portray patriarchal men, patriarchal families like me and my family, to portray us as some sort of a abusive, oppressive, tyrannical, selfish, self-centered, bad people, unhealthy people, simply because the father sits down at the table and the mother, and sometimes the children, dish up his food and bring it to him. They portray that. I've had people make arguments with me online and even 2 or 3 times in person, make arguments that, oh, well, usually men, usually fathers who either they sincerely and genuinely don't believe that they should be fed, that they should eat first. Either that or they're pandering to their wives or baby mamas or other women or whatever. Usually fathers say, well, I want my children to eat first, to make sure that they get fed. As if food is scarce in this country. As if they're living out on the frontier somewhere and all they managed to kill that day or the day before was one deer, and the food had to last so long because nobody knew when we were going to get more food. So I let my children eat first in case there's not enough food. And then, and then what? This is 2025, man. But that's the same type of person who would tell me back when we had 5 children at home. That's the same type of person who would defend their lack of children or the fact they only had 1 or 2 children. They would, for some reason, I never went to them and said, hey, dude, y'all need to have more kids. But for some reason, it would seem to bother them, I guess. It would bother them. And they'd come to me and they would say, well, the reason that I don't want to have more than 1 child or more than 2 children, or I don't want to have children at all, is because I want to be able to provide for my children the best that I can, or something like that. I want to be able to provide for my children well. And of course, that conversation would almost always, without fail, be initiated by the other person. It didn't stop me from ending up being considered the butthole by the time the conversation ended, but it would usually always. I can't think of a time where I ever initiated that conversation. Well, there are times when I tease people about having children, like especially if it's a couple, and they've got a child and it's like their second birthday or something, I might tease them, especially if I know that, that they've been kind of stressed with it. I might say, well, it's 2 years old. It's time for number 3, joking around like that. But I've never initiated a conversation, serious conversation, to try to tell people what they should or shouldn't do as far as having children. I didn't like people telling me that we should not or should not have had as many children. So I wasn't going to turn around and tell somebody who didn't have children at all or didn't have very many to tell them that they should have. Well, none of my business. Well, none of their business how many kids I had. Well, none of my business how many kids they had. So it would almost always be initiated by the other person to try to explain to me why they didn't have a big family. And they would say that it was because they wanted to make sure that they could provide for all of their children. So since they initiated the conversation, I would be quick to let them know that their child did not care how big a house they had. Their child did not care how nice of a vehicle they drove. Their child didn't care how nice of a vacations they had. Their child didn't care how nice of clothes they wore. Their child didn't care about the jet skis and the side-by-sides and the motorcycles and the. At least not until that child gets on up maybe upper middle school, even high school. But even at that time, by that time, that's their normal life. They're not going around thinking, man, I sure am glad we have a nice car to drive. Because all they know is the nice car to drive. But people would say that, because I don't want to have children because I want to be able to support all of my children and that kind of stuff. When in fact, they just want to be able to buy their toys and stuff like that. But people would say that. So, thinking back in my life, I don't know whether Mama fed Dave first or not. I seem like she did, but I couldn't swear to it. I can't pull up a literal memory of it because it just didn't matter. And with Deidre, I don't think that she always fed me first when the children were really small. That wouldn't make a whole bunch of sense. Especially considering that I was a very, 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 very hands-on father. Like I'm quick to tell women when they want to try to wag their finger at me about, taking care of children, helping out with the kids. I'm quick to tell them that I've changed more diapers and made more bottles and cleaned up more baby puke than most women. Because I was a very hands-on father, so I was probably helping dish up some of the food too, and that sort of stuff. So there must have been some sort of transitionary time between that period of time when we had little kids that we had to feed, and you wanted to get them sitting in their high chairs and their booster seats and stuff and get food in front of them so they'd shut up, and then transitioning into a more established family dinner which a lot of families nowadays sitting down to eat dinner together is a foreign concept, but my family still does it. But I don't know when it transitioned, but in our family, yeah, Big Daddy gonna eat first. That's just the way it works. And feminists and the men who simp for them, and when I say feminist, look, don't think for a minute that the church, especially the Protestant church, is not chock full of feminists. They'll tell you they're not feminists, but they're feminists. So the reason this becomes an issue is the feminists make it an issue because they want to use it to try to negate some patriarchal father or something, and to promote the whole egalitarian idea that there is no big difference between men and women other than the accessories, the plumbing, the fixtures. That's what they want to get people to thinking, and so that they want to diminish the position of father. And see that I want my kids to eat first, so I want to make sure they get to eat even if I don't get to eat, as if there's a famine on or something, a drought, a famine, a plague in the land. That is used to try to portray men like me as just being selfish. And it focuses on the actual act of eating. And the fact of the matter is, Daddy eating first has nothing to do with Daddy actually nourishing himself and getting nutrition and actually eating. It has to do with Daddy is the provider and the protector of the family. And look, up until a year ago, Deidre was a refinery mechanic at Chevron. She earned an income to rival most men in the area that we live in. So it's not like Deidre could not have provided for herself. She certainly could have financially, but there's far more that men provide to the family than just a paycheck, and that's something that the modern culture has forgotten. But when you go to the single mother home, and you see that those children suffer from sociopathies exponentially more than intact homes, then that shows you right there that daddy provides more for that family than just a paycheck. His presence provides more for that family than just a paycheck. But so the father is a provider and a protector of that family. See, he's the creator of the legacy that's passed on to those children. That father goes to bed every night, wakes up every morning with the health, welfare, and safety of his family on his back. I know. There's a lot of women out there, mothers, married mothers, and single mothers, and baby mamas who were never married. I know there's a lot of them out there. A lot of the men who pander to them too are going to say, well, women go to bed every night and get up every morning with the health, safety, and welfare of their family on their back too. So how's that different? Here's how it's different, darling. I'm glad you brought that up. The difference is that family that woman is the single mother, the head of household for, that family can go completely in the ditch, and nobody is going to point a finger at that mama. Nobody's going to, even the most belligerent feminist on the planet will still blame it on the father of those children. That's just the way it is. That single mother could be the kind of mama who runs off the father. Believe it or not, it happens. I know women don't like talking about the fact that a lot of single mothers are single mothers by choice. Mine wasn't, but many of them are. See, but so that single mother, she can refuse to marry the father. She can behave in such a way that alienates the father. This is so common that it has become an actual sociological and psychological field of study called parental alienation, where a lot of these single mothers, they vilify that father and they run him off from the home and won't let the father be involved in the family. That's a real thing, So don't tell me about what your experience is or your friend who's a fantastic single mother and all this kind of stuff. I'm just telling you what happens in many, many, many cases. I'm not talking about any specific person, so don't come to me with your anecdotes and your exceptions to the rule. It's so common that there's actually studies and treatments like counseling for these children who have been the victim of their mother's parental alienation of the father. That's the truth. But in those cases where that father didn't have any choice but to be alienated from the family, if those children end up in jail, if they end up with teenage out of wedlock pregnancies, if they end up with addictions, if they end up dropping out of school and all this kind of stuff, the community does not point their finger at that mama. Even if that situation is a product of that mama's decisions. They don't go to that mama. They're going to go to that father, no matter what. Doesn't matter how good a man he is. Doesn't matter how bad a man he is. The way that his family turns out, the way that his children are taken care of or not taken care of, the product of the family, the condition of the family, and the product of the family is laid at the feet of that man, no exceptions. There's the rare case that if the community and the family knows that woman is just some kind of just batshit crazy meth head, crackhead, prostitute, alcoholic, all this kind of stuff, There are rare exceptions, but those are statistically irrelevant. That daddy goes to bed every night and gets up every morning knowing the health, safety, welfare, provision, protection, success of his family is on his back and his back alone. Now, his wife, the mama, oh, she's a helpmate. She can assist him. She can work towards the success of the family as well. But if the family falls off a cliff, that daddy is carrying the blame and the culpability for that. So with that said, it is amazing and atrocious that mamas would make an issue out of a non-issue. That mamas would make a big issue out of, well, no, I'm feeding my kids first and all that sort of stuff. That daddy, the vast majority of them, some of them are scoundrels, but the vast majority of them are like me, and they spend their life putting their family first. That's just the honest truth. If you want to, you're welcome to join me in the comments. We can debate it out. If you're really brave, let me know, and I'll set up a live, real-time debate back and forth, where just like I'm right here in this window, you can be right over here in this window with your own little video. I can do it in Zoom. I can do it in several different pieces of software, you know, and we can debate it out in real time. Because ultimately, no matter what that mama says, no matter what the feminists say, no matter what the culture says, if the family fails, the culpability is laid at the feet of that father. But if the family succeeds, what do? Everybody thanks mama. Doesn't make sense. It's amazing. And I'm Dane.